Today on the Big 3 in 30, Texas looks to add skill players out of the portal.
Texas has signed 18 players out of the transfer portal.
The Gamecocks hope their new OC can unlock a new level of LaNorris Sellers.
We all know the potential there. We know the potential there is through the roof.
And a top 10 battle between in-state rivals in Michigan.
Oh boy, I need this game to start.
This is the Big 3 in 30 College, the three biggest stories on campus from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 College starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Texas Longhorns hope to reload this offseason in the transfer portal, and they've already been looking at receivers as of late. To break down the recruiting board, here's Locked On Longhorns host Brad Kellner.
Texas has signed 18 players out of the transfer portal. That number was at 17 when the week started. Then the Longhorns added former Western Kentucky offensive lineman Lawrence Seymour on Wednesday, which was a bit of a surprise, but a pleasant one. That made it 18. Well, the count might not be stopping there because yesterday, Texas hosted former Wake Forest wide receiver Sterling Burkhalter. Burkhalter just got a 6th year of eligibility approved by the NCAA. So he is very experienced, and he is also very well traveled. He started his career at North Carolina A&T, spent 2 years there, then transferred to Cincinnati, spent 2 years there before transferring to Wake ahead of the 2025 college football season. And 2025 was Burkhalter's most productive year by far. 30 catches, 416 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, good enough for third on the Demon Deacons in receptions and yards, and tied for second in the receiving touchdown category. Not a bad year at all at Wake Forest. Sterling Burkhalter for his career, 76 catches, 1,083 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. So again, the majority of his production coming this past season. 6'3", just a shade over 200 pounds. And again, he was in Austin yesterday on a visit. It kind of felt like as soon as Burkhalter got his eligibility waiver, Texas came calling. To my knowledge, this is the first visit that he has taken this week. Now, why would Texas be interested? Didn't they already add Cam Coleman? Don't they already have Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley and Dalen McCutcheon and Khalil Lockett and a number of other young guys coming in at wide receiver? Those are all fair questions. I'll try to answer those questions. Why would Texas be interested? Well, they could use a few more bodies at wide receiver. They lost 4 to the portal. DeAndre Moore, Jamie French, Aaron Butler, Benedict Livingston, all of them are gone. And to this point, the Horns have only added 1 wide receiver. Now, that 1 could count as 2 or 3 because of how good Cam Coleman is, but he's the only portal receiver that Texas has added. Of course, with the scholarship number increasing from 85 to 105, you don't have to worry about adding too many guys at one position and taking away from somebody else. No, you can add basically as many guys at any spot as you want at any time. Also, outside of the top 3, Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, you look at every other wideout on the Longhorns roster, they have 12 career catches. Combined, not each of them, combined, everybody else in that Texas wide receiver room has 12 career catches. Yes, there's a ton of talent there. There's no denying, but there's not much experience. Adding a guy like Burkhalter, who is actually 7 years removed from high school. I know I mentioned he just got a 6th year of eligibility, but he is 7 years out of high school because he played a year of prep ball after his senior year of high school. So he's 23 years old. He's going to turn 24 in May. Talk about experience. That's experience right there. That is a grown man. Why couldn't I stay in college for that long? That would have been nice, especially if I was getting paid to do it. Anyways, nobody cares about me. For context, how old is Sterling Burkhalter? He was originally in the same high school recruiting class as Bijan Robinson. Yeah, also Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., Hudson Card. Think about how long it's been since Hudson Card has been a Texas Longhorn. Those guys were in the same high school class as Sterling Burkhalter. So, yeah, another body with experience and some power for production with what he did at Wake Forest. I like it. If Texas was able to land Sterling Burkhalter, we're not talking about a starter here. He's not better than Coleman, Wingo, or Mosley, but he could very well be a part of the Longhorns wide receiver rotation. And don't forget, it's a long season. And Texas played 13 games in 2025. I think we're all hoping for 2 or 3 more in 2026. So depth matters. And, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Dalen McCutcheon, Judas Livingston, all of those guys got hurt and missed at least some time this past season. So I know a few of those guys I just mentioned are gone, but still, Texas had some injury issues at wide receiver a year ago that definitely impacted the offense. They are clearly hoping that that will not be the case again this season. Never a bad idea to load up on extra bodies. Now, let me say this. A bit of a reality check, because I've been very optimistic in promoting Sterling Burkhalter and talking about why this makes sense for Texas and why this would be a good pickup. I'm going to bring myself down to earth a little bit here. If Sterling Burkhalter were to sign, and if he was able to get meaningful playing time this fall without guys getting injured, I'll knock on wood, either, okay, this guy's been a sleeping giant for like 6 years, or Texas grossly missed on its wide receiver recruits. Like, part of me wonders what Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon have to do to get some more playing time. I mean, they were really highly touted recruits. Lockett was a 5-star and the second-ranked wide receiver in the nation last year. And I liked what I saw from Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon when they did get opportunities. Lockett was very good in the bowl game against Michigan. McCutcheon got the play in week 1 against Ohio State, his first career collegiate game. I like those guys. And we see plenty of freshmen around the country put up big wide receiver numbers. We see plenty of sophomores around the country put up big-time numbers at wide receiver. If Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon can't play as sophomores, are they just flat out misses? Time will tell. I hope that's not the case. Again, I understand why Texas is doing this. They are looking for more experience and no problems at all with adding some depth. But I just kind of felt like, all right, you've got your top 3, and then boom, the next opportunities are going to be given to Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon and maybe Jermaine Bishop, and you look at the other freshman wide receivers that Texas is adding. But maybe not the case. All right, enough negativity there. I still have faith that Lockett and McCutcheon are going to be really, really good players. Again, you can't have too many productive players. For what it's worth, this is not only a wide receiver thing for Texas. I think the Longhorns are going to continue to try to add experienced depth and some talented youth if they can find it, if they see somebody that fits. That's exactly what this is right here. So, offensive lineman Lawrence Seymour, that guy, if he gets his eligibility cleared, he's probably a plug-and-play starter at guard. But from here on out, there's still more than 1,000 players in the portal around the country. Texas is going to probably add at least a couple more of them. At this point, most of the impact guys are already gone. We're not talking about day one starters, but we, again, are talking about experience, depth, or talented youth that Texas hopes can develop into something down the road. That is where the Longhorns are at right now. So keep an eye on this one. Again, nothing official yet, but Sterling Burkhalter in Austin yesterday for a visit. Of course, the Longhorns have already landed one Demon Deacon in this portal cycle with Melvin Siani, the tackle, projected to start at right tackle. Maybe he can peer recruits and convince Sterling Burkhalter to join him.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over for a long time. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. South Carolina has one of the most fun quarterbacks in the country in LaNorris Sellers, and the Gamecocks hope new offensive coordinator Kendall Briles can unlock a new level of offense. Locked On Gamecocks host Chris Marler has more.
I was on with Chris Gordy earlier this week from Locked On SEC, and I was on with SEC Mike Bratton on his show, That SEC Podcast, on Monday, like I am every Monday. Make sure you guys go check it out. I think it's a live show from like at 3 p.m. Eastern time every Monday. But he asked me about where does LaNorris Sellers stand, especially with Kendall Briles coming in. And you look at some of the returning talent in the SEC and like where you're going to rank players and quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. And I look at LaNorris Sellers and I say, okay, here's the deal. We all know the potential there. We know the potential there is through the roof. The question becomes, does he take the next step? Here's where I stand confident in LaNorris Sellers thing. If LaNorris Sellers had come in and in year one of playing in this system, because he redshirts his freshman year, right? And he goes in year two, he's the starter, 2024, and he didn't look great for the first half of the season. He had glimpses of it, like the LSU game, where it's like, damn, he just took off on a 75-yard run. He made some pretty good throws. Like, this is something we can work with. Then you saw it start coming like slowly to fruition in the second half of the Alabama game, at times in that game against Oklahoma. And in the last 6 games, he turns it on. In the last 6 games, when he turns it on, we saw what we all hoped to had seen up until that point, which is a budding star, a physical freak, and one of the most physically talented players in the country. So going into next season, all the preseason hype, blah, blah, I still feel like it was pretty warranted based on what we had seen in the final 6 games. Then you see what happened last year. And last year's numbers were terrible. It just wasn't what we wanted to see out of LaNorris. It wasn't what we wanted to see of the offense. And we've talked about it time and time again. And I'm sure we'll talk about it even more throughout the offseason. But 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It wasn't the completion percentage down to 61%. It wasn't what we had all hoped to have seen. What bums me out about going into this season is I think that it actually doesn't really bum me out. Partially, it bums me out for LaNorris. But I think if you ask LaNorris or really any athlete and competitor where they'd want to be, it's great to be patted on your back and praised and all that kind of stuff. But when you get your best work in, is when you're pissed off, you're mad, and you've been doubted. And after last season, LaNorris's name is not near the top of any sort of preseason quarterback rankings. Or anything. Maybe it will be once the time the magazines come out and Phil Steele puts together his 8,000-page book. Like, if any of that happens, it's not surprising. But when I'm asked about LaNorris Sellers, I have 2 things that I keep holding on dearly to. And the first one is speculation. But the second one is, yeah, man, duh. And so I'll start with the first part. The first part is speculation because I look at what Kendall Briles has done with his other quarterbacks that he's had in his systems. I go back to when he was at Houston as the OC, when he was at Arkansas with KJ Jefferson and Felipe Franks, when he came in and was at TCU in year 1 to year 2 with the quarterback they had there. Like, I look at the progression and where he's able to take players in his offense, and I say, I think that he's going to do well in this offense. I think it's going to be catered to his skill set. I think there's all these positives that about Briles and his offense. Now, if you are an elitist, and I've heard Jesse Simon talk about this today, and I love Jesse. He does a great job. He was actually on SEC Mike's show. And he talked about, he's like, I'm kind of pausing and hesitant about the team going into this next season. They're getting a lot of hype. And if that's what your goal, if that's what your takeaway is, I totally respect that. Like, after last season, we all deserve to eat a little bit of humble pie and say, maybe not. Maybe we don't put them on the same pedestal going into this year. That's fine. But what I also sit here and say is, man, if the reason why he gave was, I don't love his OC, let me just go ahead and just tell you where I'm coming from like a foundational belief in Kendall Briles. I see the numbers. They've always been better. They've been really good at the places he's been before. So it's one of the only play callers in the country that's averaged 6.1 yards per play in each of the last 5 years. And it puts him up there with guys like Ryan Day, Lane Kiffin, other guys like that. I think he is going to be really good for LaNorris Sellers. I don't know if he's going to develop him into an NFL quarterback. I do think he is going to put him in an offense that puts up a lot of yards and a ton of points. And even if you don't think that it's that amount of production or the level of production under Bryles that like Jesse Simon said, which was, I don't think it's going to be some crazy skyrocketing thing. And the development of KJ Jefferson or lack thereof. It's not that I'm not worried about LaNorris's development to get to the NFL. It's that I also just want to win games this year. And the offense he's going to bring with this kid at quarterback is going to be really, really good. And at the very least, it's nowhere near as bad, inconsistent, and vanilla as last year's. That's the thing. The other thing I know within my heart of hearts about LaNorris Sellers, I don't know what's going to happen in 2026. I don't know if he's going to be like a Heisman frontrunner or an NFL, first round pick. There are people that still think that kid is QB1 off the draft board, even with Julian Sayin, Arch Manning, whatever. If that's the case, that's great. But here's why I still believe in LaNorris, way more than some people, especially even some of our listeners and viewers still do, because we've seen it before. This is not oh man, if he could just, you get that with Nick Harbor, you get that with Nick Harbor. It's man, if that light can come on, he could be a 1,000-yard type guy and a guy that can go over the middle and be sure-handed and a safety blanket and get draw double coverage and bracket coverage and help with the get other people open because of how people are so focused on him and all that kind of stuff. That is a project. That is a projection. That is man, I really hope this could happen. We just haven't seen it happen to that level yet. We've seen it with LaNorris. We saw his last 6 games as a quarterback for this team in 2024. I know what happened in 2025. I know what happened in 2025. But I think even if he's not up to that level of production, which was a crazy, crazy good level of production in the final 6 games, there's just no way he is handcuffed the same way he would have been in 2025's offense. There's just no way. I guarantee you, and Shane Beamer knows this too. I guarantee you, with this new offensive coordinator and Shane Beamer having, hey, my butt is on the line, blah, blah, blah. I can't have said my butt. My ass is on the line. And we're trying to get not only to a playoff, but all these other things, and keep my job. All these really, really positive things to move the program forward, but also a little bit of desperation. I know that he's not going to be all right, it's 1st and goal from the 1, 1st and goal from the 9. I bet you LaNorris gets a carry. I bet you he gets 1. I bet you he gets 1. I just feel like with the track record in place, and we're going to talk about that in the second segment, so I can show you and tell you from a numbers standpoint exactly what I'm talking about. This thing, I don't know if it goes to the moon, but it's going to take off in comparison. The rocket ship last year we thought was going to go off ended up being the Challenger. Rest in peace. But this, I feel like has a really good chance to at least continue on in the trajectory of where we all thought LaNorris would be.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5. And if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over for a long time. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. On the hardwood tonight, an in-state rivalry features top 10 teams. Number 7 Michigan State hosts number 3 Michigan, and Locked On Spartans host Matt Sheehan has more on Locked On Spartans.
there's two storylines going into this game for Michigan State side of things as to, what could trip our Spartans up. And the first one, of course, Michigan's front court. And that's not to say Michigan State hasn't played really good front court so far this season. They've had their share of lengthy opponents, but this one with Yaxel, Mara, Moritz, whew. Okay, hey, I like our front court, but that is a different animal. Or, I don't know if this is a thing, but Jeremy Fears in a big game isn't a problem. He's had some good performances against some really good teams. Just go back to that Thanksgiving game against North Carolina, but against Nebraska, he had a really tough outing. Duke, 0 of 10, really tough outing. Arkansas, not too great. Even the tournament games last year, okay, it left a little bit to be desired. He's playing the best basketball of his career right now. Could this be the litmus test if Jeremy Fears does have like a big game problem-ish? Or is it that front court that should concern me more, Greg? What say you?
The Fears stuff is hard because I think Jeremy Fears is the key to this game one way or the other for both teams. Yeah. Like, unquestionably so. If he plays the level he's played in the last 3 weeks, I think it's going to be damn near impossible for Michigan to win. And I think he's the most likely part of this game for Michigan State to dominate, especially at home. Like, it is what it is. He's a lot to deal with. He's an incredibly tough cover. And everything that he approaches the game with is a mental gauntlet. I talk about how you got to be ready to go do shoot around on the opposite end of him. You never know what's going to happen. And he gets up for these games. Like, he gets up for these moments against Michigan very clearly. He set the tone immediately at the Breslin Center last year. Yeah. I think maybe working in Michigan's favor this year in that matchup is just the simple fact most of our team, even the new guys, have seen him before. I mean, Merez Johnson played 2 games against Michigan State last year. Adai Mara played Michigan State. UCLA beat Michigan State last year. And Elliot Cadeau had a good game in Maui against Jeremy Fears last year. So it's one of those things. I think there's going to be more familiarity than expected. Fears probably isn't the thing you should be worried about, but he's the thing you need to win this game more than anything. The front court is the biggest problem for Michigan State, though. Like, just objectively speaking, I think this is the best front court in America. And I think Michigan State's got a top 5 front court in America. So this is not meant to disrespect them by any means. It's not like those guys are going to be played off the floor. But a lot of what Kohler and Cooper are so good at every single game relentlessly is going to be met with more resistance against Michigan than it is by any other team. And I do expect Michigan State to win the rebounding battle. That's what you guys do. And Michigan, honestly, is not as good there as they should be. But when Kohler and Cooper get an offensive rebound in this game, you're still going up against an elite rim protection defense. I mean, there's still going to be a 7'3" guy with giant canvas arms that I feel like I've seen enough tweets from your fans that are like, why can't we make anything at the rim against Iowa's front court, let alone against Merez and Mara? So it's one of those things. I just think both front courts are going to be who they are. Michigan and Michigan State are elite defensive teams because of those guys. What will decide the matchup is whether Fears loses his mind or whether Fears plays amazing.
And I'm hopeful for Fears. Like, I know I highlighted all the, the big games where it didn't go necessarily right for him. I think he's playing with enough momentum right now and enough clarity, enough vision, whatever buzzwords you want to use, where I expect he will have a good game here. But I just can't ignore the history. I think it's a little storyline, and let's not kid ourselves. There's so much emotion fueled into this game that's the underlying factor in all this. So
could I pose like a counter on the Fears stuff? Because I've been thinking about it a lot too. And I don't I've been as vocally critical of Fears as anybody, probably partially biased in my reasoning for that.
Understandable.
He drives me crazy with the foul baiting stuff.
It's got to be horrible for an opposing fan. Yeah, of course. Right. Yeah.
In the last 3 weeks, he's been as good as humanly possible and has limited that until you need it. Right. So I don't think emotionally, I expect Fears' emotional stuff to all work for Michigan State in this game. Yeah. My posed question back to you would just be this. I think my current Fears theory is it's not that he struggles in quote unquote big games or big environments. It's that he struggles against elite defenses. And I think if you repivot this a little bit to that, instead of the Duke game being about his loser chance. No, he went 0 for 10 against Duke because Duke is enormous and has the 4th best defense in America. Nebraska was the other game I thought he really struggled in. Nebraska has the 9th best defense in America. You haven't played another top 16 defense this year other than UConn in the exhibition, which I don't even remember how Fears did. I just know what the result was. So
yeah, right.
I guess I'm onto something there where it's not necessarily big game that's the issue, but maybe just great defense.
Yeah, I am interested to see how he's going to do against his front court because when you talk about Michigan's front court, Michigan State's, it goes outside of just them going against each other. Fears has been really good as of late, and I don't have his at the rim stats in front of me, but it certainly feels like he's been better at finishing at the rim, and it's not just foul baiting. He's actually going in with conviction more than he used to start the season. But just like you said, just like we've already highlighted, different beast when there's a 7'3" guy there, a different beast when that's Yaxel kind of just waiting for you on help side defense. So we'll see. I mean, this is the unfortunate part is that we actually have to be patient and see what this is going to look like, see if he can keep the ball rolling here. But oh boy, I need this game to start.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and the NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 NFL, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning into the Big 3 in 30 College.